Using components in Webflow can greatly enhance in efficiency and consistency of your design workflow, but there are situations where it might be best to avoid them. So in this video, I want to take a moment and give you a breakdown of when to use and when to avoid using components in Webflow. So first of all, the first case will be for, of course, reusable elements. So headers and footers are common elements which are going to help you maintain a level of consistency within the website, and probably these are going to be the staples in terms of the components that you're going to have in pretty much each and every website. So as you can see here in this example, we have the header as a component and also the footer, and that makes a lot of sense, but it's not really limited to just items such as those. In fact, call to actions, for example, can serve as a great example of a section that need to maintain a level of consistency and function across the website. Now, I'm not saying that you should absolutely use them each and every time, but it's definitely something worth considering, especially if you're grouping them in ways that need specific consistency throughout the site. Maybe you're adding some other elements. So these are things that you definitely want to keep in mind. On top of that, you want to keep these in mind for buttons and forms. So ensuring buttons, form elements, and other UI components have a uniform appearance throughout the website, and even things like product cards and listings for e-commerce websites. So using components for product cards can help maintain a consistent layout and styling. And in this example, you can see how all the product cards are going to have this base structure where we have the image and the product content below. Now, we're not really using components in this case because we're going to add an element which we are going to explore in future videos, and that is the power of the CMS elements. But the concept pretty much remains the same. So you want to keep these elements in mind, and overall you can consider using components whenever you need a streamlined update. So whenever global changes are needed, so when you need to make global changes across your site, using components allow you to update one instance and it will reflect everywhere the component is used. And even for branding elements, so think about elements such as logos, icons, and any other branding element that needs to stay consistent within the site overall. And on top of that, they're great also for modular design. So think in terms of design system. If you're a designer, you use the softwares like Figma, Sketch, or even Adobe XD in the past, you know that building a design system with reusable components can make your design more modular and overall easier to manage. And even for template pages, so using components to create template pages for blog posts, portfolios, or product pages can speed up the design process. Now, there's a lot of overlap with the CMS items, which we're going to explore, and those are going to specifically be used for those type of pages, but the same principles apply. So whether it is CMS or components, the same mindset and thinking is going to apply. Now, there's also going to be instances where you want to avoid using components. So whenever you're creating highly unique elements, for example, so unique page designs, so pages that have a unique design and layout which won't be repeated elsewhere, and specifically the custom interactions. So sections with custom interactions or animations that are specific to a particular page are not good candidates for components, as well as small scale changes. So whenever minor variations are needed, so elements that require slight variations, for example, different text or images, that doesn't justify creating a new component. And also for one-off elements or adjustments, so small adjustments that are only needed in one place. And on top of that, there is going to be some performance consideration when it comes to the components. So do be aware that the more complex and the more complex structures and heavy animations that you're going to apply on a given site, it is going to impact the page load performance. So you want to be mindful of that, although it's going to be a minimum element in the equation for the very most part, for the most scenarios, but do keep these elements in mind. So whenever you need something unique, essentially components aren't really the best way to go at it. And on top of that, I want to also remind you of some best practices. So evaluate reusability. So before creating a component, evaluate whether the element will be reused enough to justify it. And try your best to plan ahead. So plan your components during the initial design phase in order to avoid refactoring later. It's so easy as we're building a website to get lost in the gist of it, that we lose track of the bigger picture. So it's really important to take a step back and really think about how you're going to structure your website. This doesn't apply just to components, but the general information architecture of the website as a whole. So keep that in mind, as well as things like naming conventions. So use clear and consistent naming conventions for your components to keep them organized, and also keep document usage in mind. So document how and where components are used, and this is going to be especially important for larger projects where other team members are going to look and utilize and work on the website. So think about other designers, developers, even marketing team or stakeholders. So documentation is going to be really helpful, and all of these things need to be careful considered when to use components and when to avoid them, so you can create more efficient, maintainable, and consistent designs in a Webflow.